Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, and today we are going to be taking a look at Donald Trump's war chest. Now, this article is from February 1st, 2022, written for CBS News, in which they point out that Donald Trump heads into 2022 with $122 million on hand. And the thing about this is that the numbers have actually been in a position where Donald Trump has spent some of this money, but he still maintains such a significant amount of money going into our upcoming primaries and eventual general election season. You see, Donald Trump right now has $110.4 million cash on hand. That means from the time of this article between February 1st and February 28th, Donald Trump had spent $12 million. But you see, that's actually not a lot of money, especially if Donald Trump is capturing in a significant portion every single time. From the title of this video, you can tell that Donald Trump has a bigger war chest of money than both the DNC and the RNC, which is why the Democratic Party should be extremely alarmed. Donald Trump has been criticized recently, talking about how he's spending this money, how he actually hasn't been in a position where he has spent a significant amount of it. He still maintains $100 million on hand, even though we are going right into a very big primary season where there are a bunch of close and competitive races where Donald Trump's nominees and Donald Trump's endorsements aren't really making as much of an impact as they could, especially considering that he has money. So I think a lot of this criticism is very valid. But part of me thinks that Donald Trump is waiting till the general election, and I think that is under consideration by many people. You see, at face value, the Democratic Party seems like they're doing well. They've raised $52.9 million, with that being their amount cash on hand, and Republicans have $45.5 million. And seeing the Democrats up $7 million over the Republican Party, you would automatically assume, the Democratic Party is outpacing the GOP. And partially that is correct. But Donald Trump is his own entity on his own. Him raising $110 million will undoubtedly go to only Republican candidates, and that's just the national environment that we're in right now, where Republicans are up. It just doesn't look good for the Democratic Party, especially since these fundraising numbers are being misconstrued as Democrats outpacing Republicans, but actually doing significantly worse when it comes down to the rest of it. So what I see from this is that this is a major opportunity for the GOP. I'm going to go ahead and characterize all the states in the direction that I think they're going to go in the 2022 midterm elections, just so we can get a bit of an idea about where we actually stand when it comes down to this election. Let's go ahead and see if we can finish characterizing. We have Wisconsin in the Republican column. The Democrats, I think, are going to get 48 seats. That means they lose 2. They lose Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. They win the state of Pennsylvania, so it counteracts that loss. But it ultimately still puts the Republican Party in the advantage, and I still expect the GOP to win control of the House. So you're talking about a split Congress compared to the White House party in power. Looking at our map here, this puts the Republicans at 52 and the Democrats at 48. But the money targets are what I would like to talk about here, where we can expect the most amount of GOP and Democratic dollars being spent on an individual Senate race. For instance, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. These are states that you are going to see both parties funnel a lot of money into. You're also going to see it in Arizona. You're going to see it in Nevada. You're going to see it across the nation, but generally speaking in these states. It's going to hit New Hampshire. Potentially could hit Ohio and Florida, depending on who the nominee is. Same thing in Missouri. Eric Greitens just got another scandal dumped on him that actually confirmed many of the things that he had denied in the past. So there's a lot of consideration that Missouri, if Eric Greitens is the nominee, could actually be in a competitive position. But that's not where we see the money targets today. What we're looking at here are 7 individual races where we can expect the most amount of money being spent in these upcoming midterm elections. And I think that looking at what political party has most of the money right now, you're talking about the GOP. Again, the Democratic Party might have that narrow advantage in some of these states when it comes down to Republican comparison. But when it comes down to President Trump, you're looking at a super significant advantage that they have. I mean, they literally have a fundraising advantage across the nation, which means that many of these states that are currently characterized as blue or are narrowly characterized as red could shift further rightward. And a lot of that has to do with money. If Donald Trump has $100 million over the Democratic Party, that the Republican Party had 50, Democrats have 50, Donald Trump has $100 million. I mean, you're talking about a super significant amount of money that the Democratic Party can't seem to keep up with. The Republican Party is both getting donations from their voters, and Donald Trump is as well. And I don't think it's too much of a surprise. You see, Donald Trump also being in this position is a very interesting person. Being at such a high point with his money means that he has really defied all expectations. When you take a look at previous presidential candidates, especially losing ones, or even previous presidents, no one has ever raised this much money after leaving office. Not a single person. Not Barack Obama, not George W. Bush, not Bill Clinton. Sure, they might have contributed to it, but to have their own PAC, to have their own organization that is outpacing both Democrats and Republicans and their own political party, that is just unheard of. And for Donald Trump to be in a position where now he has $110 million cash on hand, that again is extremely alarming. But I'm not surprised. Let's take a look at Donald Trump's website for just a moment so we can get an idea as to how he actually raises this money. So, as soon as I went to donaldjtrump.com, I immediately was confronted with this ad. It says contribute now, and it says, put your name on the official Donald Trump donor wall. Now, these strategies have been employed by politicians for a very long period of time. But just looking, what you find immediately is a contribute button, contribute, shop, right? Enter your name, get involved, contribute. You see it multiple times. You go to the shop and what do you find? When you see Hillary Clinton's old website, nothing happens, right? You go to her website, you're not going to find Hillary Clinton for president merch. You're not going to find, Make America Great Again merch or I'm with her merch. That's not going to be released. You're not going to go to Barack Obama's website and find Obama Biden 2012, 2008 merch. You're not going to go to John McCain's website. You're not going to go to Mitt Romney's website and find merch from their failed presidential bids or at least continuations of their previous presidencies, where you exactly find that with Donald Trump. And it becomes very, very obvious. You still have MAGA hats being sold for $30. You still have signs being made, flags being made, mugs, t-shirts, whatever it might be. You are having nearly a similar amount of merchandise that was created during Donald Trump's campaign season that they still continued on. I mean, what we are finding here is that President Trump is still very much captivating his base. He is still very much getting a significant amount of donations because he is acting as if he is still running for president. And I think in many ways, he is. That's just the environment that we are in right now, where Donald Trump is very much going to be running for president, at least as it seems right now. And all of these things seem to be indicating as such. No matter where you look on his Save America website, you are going to find money grabs. You are going to find a way for Donald Trump to make the money. The same way that there are money grabs on the Democratic website, the Republican website. But the thing is, Donald Trump is no longer president of the United States, and he is not actively seeking any office. But this political action committee, the Save America PAC, has done wonders for the GOP and will likely hand them many, many victories this November because Donald Trump is a fundraising machine. He has been able to really capture a significant amount of donors despite losing the election. And when you see the 2020 numbers, Joe Biden outpaced Trump in fundraising. Hillary Clinton outpaced Trump in fundraising. Because when there was a Democratic nominee for president, the Democrats tend to raise more money than the GOP. But without a Democratic nominee for president, without someone who is actively seeking the presidency of the United States, you are giving up 2, potentially 3 years of full-blown fundraising that Donald Trump now has in the advantage over the Democratic Party. And when I look at many of these close and competitive races, I see that they are decided by tilt margins, by lean margins. $100 million could make a difference in many of these races. Adding a $5 million ad buy in a state such as New Hampshire, which is one of the more least populous states in the country. Adding in a $5 million ad buy there could truly turn the tide of the race. Democrats and Republicans are neck and neck when it comes down to fundraising, meaning that they're going to be matching each other in many of these states. But when Donald Trump walks through the door with $100 million that he has right now, cash on hand, he is going to give the GOP that sudden boost that they very, very need. And looking at the fact that we have mainly 7 key money targets, you could disperse that $100 million 7 ways, right? You could give every single one of these states a significant amount of money. Let's go ahead and see what the actual number would be. You're talking about $14 million between each individual state, each one of these, close and competitive money targets. And that's what could be giving the GOP a victory. If you see how close Georgia was in the 2021 runoff election, what you found was that it was close because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party raised a very similar amount of money. I mean, you saw $100 million spent on both sides when it came down to this race. You also see North Carolina. This is a state that is routinely competitive. You see Pennsylvania, a state that also had $100 million spent on the presidential level. You see Wisconsin, another close race. Arizona, Nevada, states that are not shying away and have not shied away in years past from money being spent on their extremely competitive races, and they have all resulted in deferring victories. But when one party consistently out fundraises, when one party consistently does so much better than the other when it comes down to the overall outcome, it's typically because there is a lot more money on one side. And that's exactly what's going to be happening here. I think Donald Trump really comes in as this unforeseen moneymaker, right? You know, the Democratic Party is focusing on what the NRSC is raising. The Democratic Party is focusing on what the NRCC is raising. They're looking at congressional committees. They're looking at super PACs. But they're ignoring the very real reality that Donald Trump could be single-handedly handing the Republican Party this victory. He could be providing them all of this money, $110 million. You're $60 million more than the DNC. If you combine the Republican vote there, you're talking about nearly $105 million more. And that should terrify any and every Democrat across the nation. Even though there is some criticism about spending some of the money, fundraising the money, but not being able to use it effectively, sure, a lot of that criticism can be deemed as valid. But then again, it isn't in this position where the fundraising numbers are going to be really scrutinized to a point where anyone can say that he's mismanaging it, because he just has a super significant amount of it. Sure, you can criticize individual ad buys or maybe backing candidates who don't seem like they have a realistic shot at victory. But Donald Trump's campaign isn't stupid. Donald Trump's campaign nearly won in 2020. They won in 2016. They know how to spend money, especially being the group that typically was in the minority with money, yet nearly matched Joe Biden in terms of overall electoral outcome. Money matters a lot in politics, and I don't think that we're going to see much more mismanagement from Donald Trump's side. I think when you have $110 million too, mismanagement, who cares, right? If he spends $10 million in a race that shouldn't be spent $10 million on, he still has $100 million left over to change the tide of the race. A lot of this money also can go directly to individual candidates, even those who were not necessarily endorsed by the NRSC or the NRCC, meaning that Donald Trump also will now have more influence. Because he is out fundraising the GOP, he also gets a stake in the game too. When you see a lot of these competitive races, when you go down to the House elections in 2022, and he goes to many of these candidates and says, I will fundraise for you. I will give you money to win your race. All you have to do is support me once you're in Congress. All you have to do is back me when it comes down to an eventual electoral certification, or at least support me in 2024, whatever it might be. He can make a deal with many of these people, and it could work out perfectly. I am confident in that. And thus his influence is increased through Congress, especially if Republicans are able to win the majority. Another thing that I do want to say is that the fact that he has raised so much money means that he is going to be getting a significant amount of credit when it comes down to the overall election results. What do I mean by that? Well, if the Republican Party actually does win control of the House and they do win control of the Senate, he can turn to Mitch McConnell, he can turn to Kevin McCarthy and say, I raised so much more money than you, and I spent all of that money on the midterms. You won because of me, not because of yourself. You won because of my $110 million. You opened the door for it with the $45 million, but I put you through. I was able to carry you across the finish line with my money. Remove my $100 million, you would not have won control of the House. You would not have won control of the Senate. And while that may not necessarily be true, it is something to be said, and it will actually look very good for Donald Trump if the Republican Party is able to win the majority on his dollar. And I think he will be a major contributor if they are to win it. I do think they are going to win it right now for many reasons, including the topic of this video, that Donald Trump is going to surge a lot of cash into many of these races. And that will continue also helping him fundraise later down the line, because he goes to the American people and say, I brought back the Republican Party after a Democratic trifecta. Sure, I might have lost in 2020 due to fraud, whatever it might be. He's going to make an excuse for that. I returned the Republican Party to power in 2022, and let's do it again in 2024. Let's change these laws. Let's go ahead and build up election integrity. Let's do X, Y, and Z. And that will be a fundraising mammoth. That will be truly the demise of the Democratic Party's chances in 2024. If Republicans have a landslide type victory, or at least a large victory, Donald Trump will take credit for it, and he will be able to boast about it, and in many ways, rightfully so. I can imagine that Donald Trump will be flying out soon to Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Florida, Ohio, Iowa, to campaign for these incumbents here, potentially trying to take down the incumbent in Colorado, the Democrat there, Michael Bennet. Who knows what he might do, but Donald Trump, I really think, is going to heavily involve himself in many of these races, and this fundraising is only a way to get his name continued to be talked about, and also to have a super significant and impactful or a major impact on the outcome of these elections. And I don't doubt that this is a strategy that is going to work effectively. I really think it's going to work, and I think that Donald Trump is going to be viewed as this, electoral mammoth that has returned the Republican Party to power in many states, has completely shifted the nation towards the right, which in some cases is true, in some cases isn't. But that is the narrative that he is going to be using, and if Republicans have a large victory on his dollar, I think it's an argument that's worth to be made, and I think it's one that's going to be working very effectively, especially going into the 2024 presidential election cycle. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.